In this video, we'll be talking about the Beats packages. In this video, we'll cover what is Beats. We'll look at the different beat packages that come from Elastic, including FileBeat, Metrics and Heartbeat, Windows Log, Audit, and PacketBeat. First, let's talk about what is Beats, or what is a beat. So, Elasticsearch started using Logstash as their main log shipper a long time ago. As Logstash and Elasticsearch grew in popularity, they added the Beats protocol, which is a very lightweight way to send data from one system to another. Primarily, this is used to send data to Logstash or Elasticsearch. So Beats itself is a protocol that allows you to send that data. What the packages that we're going to be looking at here are different single-purpose applications. They are built to inspire a distributed collection of data from many sources. Imagine you're running an AWS or Azure cluster of Docker systems, and you need to get log data or monitoring data of your system to one single location, and you have thousands of Docker instances running. The challenge is, if you install Logstash, it's a pretty heavy application, and therefore each of your Docker containers would require significantly more CPU and memory than they really should. So the Beats process, the Beats protocol and different packages came along to sit in a much smaller footprint for CPU and memory. So you can install one or more Beats on every system you have deployed as a way to get data from those systems to a centralized collector. You could do tiered collection with multiple Logstash instances or something like that, but primarily these are the lightweight shippers to get data off of a server. So that since it is a defined and standard protocol that's open sourced, anyone can write an application that uses a Beat protocol to get data to their Logstash collector or to their Elasticsearch. So along with the Beats we'll be talking about in this video, there are tons of community Beats. Heck, you can go write your own. It's a very straightforward protocol. So the list of Beats at the time of this recording from Elastic are FileBeat, which is used to send a file from one place to another. This is your very typical logging use case. MetricBeat is a way we've been able to monitor the Elastic system we've been looking at through this whole series. This is the beat that sends CPU, memory, disk, I/O, network utilization. PacketBeat is a very lightweight way of monitoring network infrastructure. It runs as if it were any other open source network security monitoring tool. It extracts HTTP data and whatnot, DNS data, and ships it off to Logstash or Elastic. WinLogBeat is a plugin or an application that runs on a Windows machine that reads Windows event logs and sends that data back. AuditBeat is very similar to WinLogBeat, is used on Linux systems, so I kind of group those two together. And Heartbeat is a way of monitoring systems uptime, and we're going to talk a little bit more about each of these. But again, the purpose of all of these is to provide a single function way of getting data back to Logstash or Elasticsearch. So FileBeat's Beats application that I saw, this is to reproduce the very simple use case of Logstash. Logstash was primarily built as as that data pipeline we've talked about over and over again. Read a log file, perform any filtering or any aggregation or any altering of data, and ship it off to Elasticsearch. So FileBeat and any other Beats application doesn't do that transformation and analysis. All it does is very efficiently takes that data from the machine being monitored and sends it up to Logstash. So I've tried to group these Beats together when going through this video. So here I'm going to talk a little bit about MetricBeat and Heartbeat. So I look at MetricBeat as the internal monitoring of a server or a system. This will monitor your CPU utilization, your memory usage, disk I/O, network I/O, all of the pieces of data, system load that we've been looking at throughout this video series. So one thing we didn't focus on much was the analytics this will do for open source software that we're pretty used to, like Redis and Nginx. It'll pull metrics from those if you have it configured. So this is really looking inside of the health of your system. Now, Heartbeat is a way to verify the health of a system via an external mechanism. So Heartbeat can make an HTTP call to some health check. It can run ICMP pings against your server. You can try to make TCP connections, HTTP connections. It does support TLS and proxies and authentication. So it's kind of a probe or a web application health check. This is a very typical application or a very typical use case for cloud deployments. If you have a large cluster of applications or some cloud deployments of applications, then we can make sure they're up and running. If they're not, you can kill them externally, within AWS or Azure's APIs and automatically spin things back up. So these two I really do look at as the internal external monitoring. Next, let's talk about security and audit. So Audit Beat is a beat that you run on a Linux system. It does integrate with other auditing mechanisms such as AuditD within the operating system. And I was looking at the output of this file or of this beat, and there's all kinds of information from file access to authentication requests, sudo requests, directory changes, all kinds of the data you're going to get from auditing your Linux system. And Winlog Beat is very similar. It's the same thing, but on the Windows side. Here you'll see the information like software installation, when somebody plugs in their USB device, copies data to the USB device, as well as local authentication. So these are ways you can keep an eye on your system. I always go back to that security use case of making sure a system is healthy. And if a system is displaying, escalated privileges for applications running regularly or more than it should, then that could indicate a compromise of some sort. So using these two beats is a great way of figuring that out. And my favorite of all, since I am a network security nerd, PacketBeat is a way to monitor a NIC or a network interface card on your computer and log what it's seeing on the network. So depending on how you have your network set up, you can see different things. So typically you'll see various scans or broadcasts on your network. You'll see direct connectivity to the computer you're monitoring. So say you install this on a workstation, you could monitor web traffic, HTTP, TLS traffic, with less data, especially if it's in a spam port kind of monitoring situation where you're monitoring other people's networks. So I went through the documentation here, and it says it captures the data, which is monitoring individual packets. It decodes these packets and looks for a higher level, level 3, level 4 network data, or level 7 network data on one side of a TCP stream. So imagine an HTTP request would be on one TCP output stream. And then it correlates, and it's going to take the inbound and find that inbound traffic for the HTTP response and correlate the request and the response together to make one HTTP session, if you will. Then it's going to extract fields. So from that HTTP request and response, it'll pull out client and server protocols. It'll pull out TLS versions, all different kinds of host names and URLs and etc. from the HTTP protocol. Then it's going to aggregate it. It's going to count how many packets were in that TCP session. It's going to tell you how long it lasted. You can see if it's a big file download or a big file upload. So this is going to pull out all kinds of neat stuff on your network and log it to your Elasticsearch instance. So what I want to do now is show you how we can install Beat package. So I have not done this one yet. I'm going to flip over to the Elastic Beats page. This page, I have found the Audit Beat at the Elastic website. Google Audit Beat Elastic or something like that. Scroll down, you'll find the download button. Download button is going to take you to the download page where you can decide which distribution you want to download. All of my systems are running CentOS, so I want to grab the link address of the RPM. Now, once I grab that URL, I can go to my Linux server that we've been using this whole time. I'll use wget, download that RPM, and we'll see here we have the Audit Beat RPM. To install an RPM, we'll run sudo rpm-i for install, Audit Beat, give our sudo password, and now we have Audit Beat installed. So to start it, actually let's go look at some configuration. We'll look at etc auditbeat /auditbeat.yaml. And here, I just want it to go to my local Elasticsearch. So we'll find our outputs. And we'll find Kibana. Here we can have it set up our dashboards if we want. Let's have it do that. And then we can see if those dashboards look any good. And we will tell it to send to output localhost port 9200. Great, that's exactly what we wanted. So if you want to look at that again, I looked at the dashboard setting where you can tell it to define some dashboards by itself. And this one's pretty cool. So it'll build some options for it to look nice. Let's run this. We'll run sudo service start audit beat. Sudo service audit beat start. Then we'll run over to Kibana. So before I do any reloading, I've got a couple of messages here. Looking at our metric set module, they're all systems. So that's all of our metric beats. We'll do a new search, and hopefully we find some other data. All right, no new data. So let's go do some stuff on our Linux machine. So this is a folder I have all my cool code for all of my videos. We'll do some sudo. I'm running sudo to kick off some auditing metrics. Head back to Elastic. We'll head back to Kibana. Do another search, and I see a big spike. Let's see what we find. Event.action, event.module. These look new to me. File, inode, file. Good golly, there's a lot of stuff in here. Message, Kibana. So there are a whole lot of new pieces of data in here, which is great. So let's pick one. Let's look at this one. Now it says, we have a document. Let's see, var log secure. This is a PWD, which is seeing from which active working directory, the program's working directory, was my home CF packed Elastic. And hey, this is where I ran bin echo. This is to generate some audit. Var log secure, prospector type of log. So now we see this new data in here from that beat that we just installed live as we were heading through. Let's see if any dashboards were created. Look, so we go to the dashboards page in the left within Kibana, and we can see what happened. So let's look at the execution. So I know. So here are some file integrity messages. 1300 count, whole bunch of different files in here. So this is a default dashboard that came out of this Beat package. Now, I didn't configure it. I just told the Beat program to automatically create these dashboards within Kibana. I gave the Kibana URL of localhost port 5601. They are turned off by configuration, or I should say the ability to automatically create dashboards is turned off by default, so you got to turn it on if you want to get the dashboards out of here. So this is an example of installing and running a Beat program. In our next video, we're going to talk about Logstash outputs to finalize our Logstash series. We're going to talk about where else we can send data. We can send data to a lot of places, not just Elasticsearch.